Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Seattle Atheist Church. Atheist, agnostic, skeptic, freethinker, whatever you call yourself, you are welcome here. At Seattle Atheist Church, we call ourselves an atheist church because you will never hear anything supernatural promoted from the podium. Our church is founded on the principles of scientific naturalism and secular ethics. Truth claims are attempted here, and we stand ready to revise our thinking in light of new information. We attempt to be excellent to all conscious beings, and we believe in good, because good works in non-mysterious ways. If that sounds good to you, you are probably in the right place. If you would like to support church, mostly that means that money goes to renting the rooms. We are having a goal of maybe having presence at some street fairs and things like that. You can drop a bill into the jar on your way out. We also have a website, seattleatheist.church, and you can see old videos and things there. So in terms of what's coming up, we have movie night first Friday of the month, and it's going to be the Mr. Rogers movie. I think it's called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And that's really the closest thing that's coming up. Next week's talk is on biohacking. Next week's talk, yeah. So welcome, and looking forward to talking after the presentation. Thank you.
Hey everyone. So today's talk will be on the Constitution. So the purpose of this talk is not to really inform you, but to kind of bring up the topic and to ask questions, kind of, you know, what does the Constitution look like today? What did it used to look like? And what should it look like in the future? And how should we progress forward? Okay, so I want to start off by reading the first part of the Constitution, and it states, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America." And the Constitution, when it was drafted, was put into 7 articles. The first one being to form the legislative, the second one being to do the executive, then the third for the judicial, and then fourth for the states' rights, and then mode of amendment to change the Constitution. Number 6 was prior debts, national supremacy, and oaths of office. And then Article 7 was for the ratification. And then shortly after the Constitution, we have the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights covers a lot of kind of what we're talking about today and a lot of the rights we're fighting for and trying to define. So I want to read off the Bill of Rights and then kind of go over an article that talks about America's attitude and beliefs on the Constitution compared to what the Constitution really is. And then I'll ask a few questions, and then we'll have hopefully an informative discussion. So the Bill of Rights, Article 1, is on the freedom of expression and religion. And it states, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abiding the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances." Article 2 is bearing arms. "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed." And then Article 3 is quartering soldiers. "No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quarantined in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law." And then we have Article 4, search and seizure. This is one that I think is really, people can kind of take it one way or another. So this is one that I personally have had seen people, argue really strongly in one way and really strongly the other way. And about people's rights in the search and seizure, and it states, the right of the people to secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath of affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Article number 5 is the rights of persons. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a permanent or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken of public use without just compensation. Article number 6, rights of accused in criminal prosecutions. In criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury to the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by the law, and to be informed the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witness in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Number 7 is civil trials. In suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by a jury shall be preserved, and no facts tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than adorning to the rules of common law. Article 8 is further guarantees in criminal cases. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishment inflicted. Number 9 is enumerated rights. The enumerated in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by people. And lastly, Article 10 is reserved powers. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or the people. And that one has come up a lot, especially with the initiatives we passed for states' rights. A lot of the conservatives were for states' rights, and certain things have come up where the courts are saying, hey, it's the states' rights, and they're like, no, we want the federal to now on. And it's kind of like a flip from what they have, and it kind of shows that we may not be using these the way they're intended. Some people may be using them to push their agendas, and when their agendas, switch, then they want to switch the meaning, and that can be very troublesome. And our Constitution should not be switched like that, and it needs to be a little more rigid and kind of not changing as people's ideas change. That's one of the great things about our Constitution, is that it's a solid foundation and it can't be changed by one person or party, and we need to hold that true. So that's something that I really want to talk about and kind of figure out what works and what doesn't. And next, I want to read an article from the Huffington Post by Antonia Blumberg. This article kind of talks about the Constitution and what the general public believes, the rights and the responsibilities, and kind of how skewed we are, and then kind of how unskewed we are, and take it for what it is. And I hope it brings up a lot of questions on how we should interact with people and kind of their mindsets, and how we can kind of get to a consensus. So, nearly a quarter of Americans, 22%, either don't know or don't believe that U.S. Muslims are granted the same constitutional protections as other citizens. Roughly 20% don't know or don't think that atheists are protected under the Constitution. These are among the findings of a new study by the University of Pennsylvania's Annenberg Public Policy Center, released ahead of the September 17th Constitution Day, which celebrates the anniversary of the U.S. Constitution signing in 1787. The survey asked respondents whether they thought it was accurate to say that U.S. citizens who are Muslims have the same rights as all other citizens. 76% of those surveyed said it was very accurate or somewhat accurate, while 18% said that it was very or somewhat inaccurate. 4% said they didn't know. On the same question about U.S. atheists, 79% said it was very accurate or somewhat accurate, and 15% said that it was very or somewhat inaccurate. 5% said they didn't know. The annual Amber Constitution Day Civics Survey polled 1,013 U.S. adults about the government, the First Amendment, and the constitutional protections. This year marked the first time the survey included the question about Muslims and atheists. The survey didn't ask respondents about their knowledge of the protections granted to Christians or other religious groups. But it isn't just the constitutional rights of Muslims and atheists that Americans are unclear on. Many Americans are highly misinformed about basic constitutional provisions, including what the First Amendment protects and even how the U.S. government is organized. 53% of Americans incorrectly think the undocumented immigrants aren't offered rights under the U.S. Constitution. In fact, the Supreme Court ruled on that issue in 1886, decision Yickwo versus Hopkins, declaring that non-citizens were included in the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Just 26% of Americans can name all three branches of government, down considerably from 38% in 2011. When APPC first included this question on the survey, 37% of respondents were unable to name any of the rights guaranteed under the First Amendment. Just under half of those surveyed named freedom of speech as a right guaranteed by the First Amendment. But far fewer could name the other First Amendment rights. 15% of the respondents named freedom of religion, 14% identified freedom of the press, 10% named the right of assembly, and just 3% said the right to petition the government. The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abiding the freedom of speech or the press or the right of people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. Protecting the rights guaranteed by the Constitution presupposes that we know what they are. The fact that they may not is worrisome, said Colleen Hall Jameson, director of the Annenberg Public Policy Center, in a statement. These results emphasize the need for high-quality civics education in the schools and for press reporting that underscores the existence of constitutional protections. In the case of Muslims' constitutional protections, misinformation can have real impact on people's lives. Hate crimes against Muslims have risen sharply in recent years, often fueled by rhetoric from the paints the religious minority as outsiders in their own country. A major tactic of anti-Muslim campaign and commentators has been to cast Islam as a political ideology rather than a religion, which would preclude Muslims from receiving protections on the basis of their faith. That's been a common theme in the Islamophobia machine for a number of years, the claim that Islam is not a religion and therefore that it should not have the First Amendment protections of religion. Ibrahim Hooper, National Communications Director of the Council of American Islamic Relations, told the HuffPost. I think this was really accelerated during the presidential campaign, and now with the election of Donald Trump, we've seen the mainstreaming of Islamophobia views such as this. Hooper noted the difficulty finding like those from the Annenberg survey present to the civil rights organizations like CAR, whose mission is to ensure that Muslims' rights aren't just recognized but also protected. that a quarter of the population believes Muslims aren't even on the same playing field in terms of civil rights and religious rights, and freedoms is a big hurdle to get over, he said. With you, first you have to convince people that Muslims have the same rights as other Americans, and then you can go on to defend those actual rights. So that's the article. I think there's a lot of food for thought to think about, like, how does America perceive different people? What do they consider things to be? Some of the questions that brought up to me is like, what amendments should we add to the Constitution? Because times have changed. America is not the same place it was when the Constitution was created. Is this the best system for us? We need to look at the fundamentals. Is there something better out there that we can put in place? Is the Constitution equal and fair as it's written for everybody? As people change, as different cultures come in, and as different cultures develop inside of our own country, we need to really consider what is the Constitution protecting and who is not being protected. And then lastly is like, let's look at other countries. What are they doing? Can we learn from them? And are there things that we're doing that other countries can learn from us? So with that, I look forward to having a discussion, and let's circle up.